Hello, friends. You are now listening to I Know Nothing. My name is Marcus, and I'm here with George. And today on the podcast, we'll be talking about forest fires. The I Know Nothing podcast is a progressive story about two normal guys trying to see beyond politics and money. We try to find the real facts behind the narrative by sharing our thoughts. George and I don't feel associated with climate advocates of our day, so we're documenting our journey to becoming more educated. Before we begin, if you can't listen to the podcast fully this week, then make sure to hit us up on our social media pages because the challenge for this week is going to be a big one. So, George, how's the week been?
Not too bad, thanks, mate. It's been pretty full on, but I'm back in Devon for this weekend, which has been really, really nice. It's just good to be home with my family. My sister's been away for, a month or two now, a couple of months, and so it's really nice to see her and spend time with my dad. Mum's obviously still working away from home, so she's not here. But yeah, and then at work I'm working on some cool projects, like the one I mentioned last week about fighter jets. So that's been pretty exciting. What about you?
Yeah, it's been slow, mate. Of course, I've just got the holiday blues quite hard. And because of the holiday, it's been quite difficult to get back into the flow of things, in terms of work, etc., and this podcast. Yeah, but slow, steady, nothing special really.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Coming back from holidays just sucks. I've been really ill this week, so I've sort of maybe shared your blues, but in a slightly different way.
Are you over it now? You're not going to be coughing on the camera or anything?
No, I'm not going to have to mute the mic this week every 3 minutes.
Good.
So how did you find our challenge last week, which was avoiding single-use plastics for anyone that doesn't know?
So I think I've done okay. I think for the most part, I used my own bags, etc. And in particular, when going out, I requested for no straws, etc.
Nice.
But one of the things that I did notice is packaging of items, like this new mic stand that I've just purchased. The packaging comes with so much plastic, bubble wrap, plastic, sellotape, etc. And so it's really interesting to highlight and focus on that kind of stuff and see it, and be aware of it, because the amount of plastic that they use in cardboard is so much. Not just this, microphone manufacturer, but I think with all packaging, right?
Yeah, in general. Well, I suppose it's just there must be some sustainable alternative, but I guess packaging is such a big expense, and so there's a move to, obviously distributors minimise how much they spend on it.
Yeah, of course. But in terms of my choices, they haven't been that terrible.
Okay.
What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm similar. I've been making my own lunches, which I probably should have been always, because obviously financially it's way better anyway, but just with the moving house, etc., I was being a bit lazy. However, that does make a big difference. It makes it so much easier, because obviously you're not buying a sandwich, bag of crisps, and drink bottle every day.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I did a big shop before we recorded, so kind of unintentionally cheated, in the sense that I didn't have to avoid buying anything that had a plastic wrapper. So in the week, I didn't actually buy very much that had a plastic wrapper that I was going to throw away, which was, I suppose, nice in that sense. And the bulk shops, I bought 10 kilograms of pasta rather than or however much the bag is, rather than the 500 gram bags.
Typical student move.
There were definitely a few lapses though. I didn't go for any straws or plastic bags though. As far as I remember, I'm pretty certain that I didn't go through any of those. So that's a positive.
Yeah, I did though. Not gonna lie, a few times. You're just caught off guard. Sometimes I make the decision, I need to do a shop. I haven't planned. I don't have a bag, so you buy a bag. But luckily, it's not like I'm throwing the bags away after I use them.
Yeah.
I'll hopefully reuse them somehow in the future.
Well, hopefully 47 times.
47 times.
So I was wondering actually, and I think it was the first episode that we did. You mentioned you were starting a coffee group. How's it going?
So, actually, with that, and a lot of people at my work, well, when I say a lot, 2 or 3, have asked me the same. And in the Netherlands, especially, I think, there's a time period where everyone goes on holiday. And
Right.
it felt like no one was coming into work at a particular point, so I had to postpone it to September because no one was there to even attend.
Yeah.
Now, I could have kept it running, but I felt that, more people would talk about how little of interaction there was in the meetings. So,
Okay. So you're just saving it for a time when there's enough
yeah,
people that... Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's fair enough. That's cool. So I think it's a good time maybe then to start on our main topic. As you said, it's about the Amazon rainforests and forest fires. And, well, if anyone's missed it, the Amazon rainforest is burning, and at quite a rapid rate. There's some pretty horrible images all over Instagram, the news everywhere really. And so we thought it was the right time to talk about it and find out a little more. So, I mean, I'll start us off, and I don't really know enough about this one. I feel like that's probably the same for a lot of our listeners. So it's got into the mainstream media recently for both, I think, sort of a right and wrong reason. And really the comparison that I've seen used a lot is that Notre Dame burnt down and everyone went absolutely nuts, and rightly so. But then the Amazon rainforest has been burning and burning at an incredible rate, and we barely know about it. Nobody seems interested, and really the only reason that it's hit into the mainstream media now is more due to the fact that it wasn't reported and how unjust that was, and then now it's become sort of unacceptable not to report on it, and people want to read about it. So I suppose at least it's being noticed now, but then the real reason it got into the media was actually sort of...
That comparison.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, I don't know how long it's been going on for, but I think I read somewhere like 3 weeks or, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
But I have not heard a single thing. It hasn't, blown up my social media at all. It hasn't gone viral or anything. And it's only recently, in this week, that it's kind of been sharing awareness, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that there isn't much to disagree with on this one, and it might come across, quite preachy for this episode. I think we can all agree the fact that what's happening in the Amazon is terrible. You see all those photos of the fire just engulfing the whole rainforest, and it's quite moving. What I have noticed is that the G7 world leaders are keen to discuss this one. And it's going to be quite interesting to see what they come up with in terms of ideas or how to solve this issue.
Yeah, it definitely looks like they're going to discuss an action plan, but it's one of those things where are they just coming out and sort of making statements about it so that it seems like there's immediate action when really it will quietly disappear during the G7 summit. We'll see, I guess. What do you know about wildfires, forest fires?
Well, again, just like with a lot of these things, I don't really know too much. One of the things that I do know from how I grew up is that with commons, which is land in for commons, which is land for public use, that is quite close to me when I live in the UK. You've got Woodbury Common, which is close to myself. They sometimes purposely burn the common to regenerate life, I think. I think the act comes from the fact that there is so much growth of bushes that plants that are below that, I don't know what the word is, but below that threshold, I guess, don't get any light and therefore die. But again, I'm not too sure, and for me to say that, it's quite hard to compare that with forest fires, and especially fires in the rainforest, I think I feel like the Amazon is just too much of an ecosystem to have the need for human interaction, similar to that of burning the commons on purpose. And everything just works by itself. Everything is interconnected. So, yeah. I mean, this is really one of the main reasons why some activists say that there's too many humans on this planet, because we just keep destroying things, which I don't personally believe, but it kind of has some logic to it in terms of the fires that are happening in the rainforest at the moment.
Yeah, I think what you said there was very true. The point about the ecosystem and that we really, it's too much of a closed system for human interaction. I think one of the things I've noticed is that it's sort of that thing where, yes, forest fires are needed to achieve, like you said, the revitalization of the vegetation, but that happens at a natural rate, and if we try and push it beyond that rate, which is pretty much as humans we do with everything in the world, then obviously we're doing more damage than good. And especially on top of that, it seems to make sense to me that if you're burning vegetation to then let life come through, you have to leave it to do that. But if you don't, if you then put cattle on it or grow other things on it, agricultural products, then actually you're stopping what would have come back, and so that argument sort of disappears,
Totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, that's exactly why they do it for commons, at least. I don't know if they do it for forests or larger scale, but that's exactly what they do, because they don't really choose to grow anything. They're just letting life just happen. And I think with these particular fires, they control it somehow. When you look at images, you'll see a particular portion of the common, all charred up, but the rest is quite luscious, and it looks
there's like a straight line, isn't there?
Exactly that. Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean. So I think we should go on to what we've learnt. Really, we've spent a while researching this, a few days, and we've come out with some, I think, quite interesting stuff, and it's going to be good to go into it. So how about you kick us off, Marcus?
So, firstly, I think it's important to share in particular the main reason why the Amazon is so important. It provides 6 to 9% of the world's oxygen, not 20% like some sources missay. It is home to 10% of the world's animal species, and it provides us with so much resource that it's hard to find a reliable quantity in terms of how much resource there is in the Amazon. But it provides, a huge amount. And you also have to remember that it's not just the fire that kills these species, but it's most likely the smoke that is harming the ecosystem. If you think about the wild, if you think about yourself, I would not be able to survive in something with that amount of smoke. So you can only imagine what these animals are going through right now.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I think it's that talk about, or point about oxygen production is quite an interesting one, I thought, because I looked it up, because I always think whenever it's really interesting to look these things up and see where the misinformation has come from. And I mean, quite a few politicians are quoting that 20% figure, but it is misleading, because if you essentially add up what the Amazon produces in terms of oxygen on land, then it's about 16%, and you can see where they've rounded it up to 20%. But this figure doesn't include the phytoplankton, which we've mentioned before, which conducts a huge amount of photosynthesis in the sea, and that brings down the overall production of oxygen of the Amazon rainforest to sort of 6 to 9%, like you say.
Yeah.
However, on top of that, oxygen production is a funny figure to use, I think. And I suppose it's used because I think it's easier to measure than CO2 absorption, but it's not actually the most important figure, because there's loads of oxygen in the atmosphere. It's not necessarily abundant but there's, I think, 500 times more oxygen than CO2 in the atmosphere. And in reality, the Amazon rainforest uses as much oxygen as it produces. I think 60% of the oxygen it produces, it uses in the nighttime when no photosynthesis is happening. So the trees use that. And then the other 40% is organic matter breaking down, like dead trees, dead animals, things like that. So it doesn't really affect too much the oxygen, but it's pretty neutral in terms of that sense. But it does consume a huge amount of CO2, and that's really what's important. Yeah.
This is one of the main reasons why I didn't really get into climate activism or anything of that nature before, was because of these facts and statistics that you hear on the news and you just don't question, and they're always enlarged or emphasized to, gain traction, listeners or readers or whatever. And then to find out that sometimes, they're lying again, or it's fake news or whatever, it puts me off to the sense of, what else are they lying about, etc. Just tell us the facts in terms of, it's probably 6 to 9%. But actually, what's the most important part is XXX.
Well, I think the thing is actually they just don't realise. People are being honest often, not always, but people are often being honest. They just have no idea. They've looked up the first article that comes up on Google, and there you go. That's my fact. I don't need to check this, because why would you lie about this fact? But obviously, these things, they travel very quickly, and once one news provider, sort of reputable news provider, states that fact, then they just chain reaction.
They just run with it.
Yeah.
And we know this because, of course, when you started that Xbox Live website and media production, we had to write articles, and we went to like a source which had all the gaming news, I guess, and we just basically copy and pasted from there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it happens in the media a lot, and it's such a shame, the emphasis of these terrible facts, but it distracts us from what actually is happening. And of course, people then stop caring.
Yeah, I agree. So that's why the Amazon's important. What do you know about what's actually causing the fires, Marcus?
So what I found, and it was quite difficult to find any, concrete answer apart from the fact that 99% of the fires in the Amazon especially are caused by humans, either by accident or on purpose. Most of this seems to be due to the agricultural business in the Amazon, and especially farmers, they're clearing their land and logging, etc. And it doesn't help that the fact that the Brazilian president has generally attempted to point the finger at others and has made massive cuts to Brazilian environmental agencies, and has promoted the likes of unlocking the economic potential to the Amazon. So a lot of these fires have been caused by humans, really, rather than caused by climate change as a direct result. Or, you could then say they're certainly driving it rather than climate change driving it.
Yeah, I get what you mean. So while the fires aren't necessarily, we don't need to look at them and be like, oh my God, climate change is happening, the Amazon's burning. Rather, we can look at it and say, actually, that's definitely driving it, because we're losing that CO2 sink, as it were.
Exactly. It doesn't help, does it? And all of these things are cyclical. They all, I've probably used a word that I don't really understand, but all of these things are connected, at least. And so the likes of the Amazon rainforest, on fire, affects everything else somehow or another.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I suppose it could be argued that sunburns are beneficial, like you mentioned earlier about the UK commons. They're removing the dead trees and the trees that are actually blocking the canopies to make way for healthy trees to thrive. But this is, by and large, from what we can tell, not the reason it's happening in the Amazon. So unless you've got anything to add, Marcus.
Well, not really, because it was quite difficult finding any factual information about the Amazonian fires, apart from the fact that, on the whole, humans cause it, and it's quite devastating. But apart from that, not much else.
Yeah, I think the big risk is people assuming that the fires are caused by climate change, which that would be misinformation. But then beyond that, I think, like you say, it's quite difficult to find anything out, because any facts you do read, the Brazilian Prime Minister is saying the opposite. He's saying, no, actually, like, we're not starting the fires, the farmers aren't starting the fires, it's climate activists starting the fires, which is probably a lie, like, if we're honest. Apparently they're doing it to embarrass him, which seems like a strange thing to do, But, I mean, who knows, but maybe that's happening. But it is, like you say, it's really hard to find concrete sources, and also just it's hard to find the true source, not just reading a website, but actually finding where that information's come from. So I think in summary, obviously forest fires are devastating when they're not done for the reason of essentially letting the land grow again. You can see the photos of the Amazon. It's a beautiful place and it's being burnt. But I think there is something we can do as individuals, and that's really to buy locally produced food and sustainable local wood products. If you're building a house or buying furniture, then getting wood from local sources means that you're not only reducing transport emissions, but you're also stopping that increased demand for land in the Amazon, because there is sustainable deforestation in the Amazon, but there's a lot of unsustainable deforestation. And any land that's taken for agriculture really isn't that likely to become forestry again for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, totally. That's exactly what it is. I don't know where the fact has gone, but I did write it down. But I think it was like 80%. There has been 80% more forest fires in the Amazon than last summer.
Yep.
And that's due to the fact that, of course, they're caused by humans, but generally they're controlled by the humidity and the natural wetness of the rainforest. But the problem at the moment is, of course, that there's been a huge drought this year. No, George is shaking his head.
Yeah.
Tell us.
You might be right, actually. I didn't check this one properly, but there's actually a slight difference, and that is that I think we should avoid giving the sort of excuse of droughts, because basically the Amazon's still very humid, and it's really hard for fires to start by accident. They do start by human caused by accident sometimes, but most of them are just on purpose, and it's just happening on a massive scale. So it almost seems like, how could this be accidental? How could anyone do this on purpose?
So it was you who deleted my fact.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then we're going to have to talk a little bit more, because I was still under the impression that drought is the thing that is not helping, at least.
You might be right, but from what my research suggested was that, and this is what we were sort of about to go on to, and this is the difference between the Amazon and the US.
Right.
In the US, it's becoming drier. Climate change is drying out the climate there, and that's increasing the risk of fire, and also making fires harder to stop when they do kick off. So even like a little, dropping a cigarette or having a campfire can lead to thousands of hectares of land burning.
Yes.
In the Amazon, you've kind of got to do it on purpose. It's kind of got to be like, oh no, I spilt a load of petrol.
Oh really?
I think I might be wrong.
Because so I might be wrong also, but what I read was that they were saying drought has not helped that situation whatsoever.
Sure, you are almost certainly right. It sounds pretty reasonable.
Fucking asshole. delete my fact, and then
call you out when you're like ad-libbing, trying to like remember the facts.
Yeah,
and actually remembering it exactly right, because I remember what you wrote. I'm such a dick.
But to be fair, though, it is quite a big leap to say that the drought has not helped. I do get what you're saying. You are damage limiting the podcast. in
Well,
terms of
it's sort of
what information is shared.
yeah, it kind of, and it's
For
kind of
sure.
like maybe. I mean, yeah, I think that one. It's a fact that probably is true in general, but I sort of was worried about it coming across like actually taking
Yep.
away from
Yep.
what the farmers
Yep.
are doing out there. Because
Yep.
realistically, I mean that figure of up to 99%, that's a lot of human caused fire, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and that is probably the best takeaway. You see, that's why we needed the fact, George. That's why we needed to talk.
That's true, yeah.
Because it's that is the most important fact out of all of them. Isn't the fact that it's to do with the drought or anything, but the fact that actually a lot of these fires are caused by humans each year.
Yeah. Yep.
It's only so happens that this year it's particularly bad, whether or not it's because of politics or the drought or whatever. But at the end of the day, humans are the things that are causing this fire.
Yeah.
99% is huge. And we're not talking about, the likes of storms or lightning hitting a tree and then all of a sudden, this isn't Jungle Book. This is farming and real life causing fires.
Yeah. Yeah, this is more Bambi than Jungle Book.
This is, I looked at, because when researching this podcast, I looked at the Jungle Book. Because I remember there's a scene in the Jungle Book, and I think the new one where there's a lot of fire and it's all,
Oh yeah.
That's what kills Shere Khan, right? Or at least makes him run away.
Yeah.
And then I was there like, oh, maybe Shere Khan isn't the bad guy in this. Maybe it's actually the human that's the bad guy in this, because obviously causes forest fires, kills lots of animals. And maybe Shere Khan's actually the hero in the story by saying, no, we can't let this human in the bloody forest.
Yeah.
Actually, he should be killed.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
They knew that one day we'd realise.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Who knows? But, sorry, George, where were we?
I think we've summarised it quite nicely. I didn't think either of us wanted to go too heavily into the forest fires in the US. I think that in a short summary, basically the climate's drying out, whether that's permanently or because of climate change, or this year is particularly bad. It's probably a bit of both, but that drought is definitely causing the increase in fires and doing a lot of damage to the economy and to people's homes. Have you seen Only the Brave?
No, I haven't. And when you say that, I think of the diesel fragrance for the Brave or whatever it's called.
I think it is called Only the Brave.
Yeah.
So yeah, Only the Brave's the film, not well, it's a fragrance as well, I guess, but no, it's a film about firefighters or wildfire fighters, whatever they're called, in the US, and it's so cool, but also so sad.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think you should go and watch it as soon as you next get a chance to watch a film. Just watch Only the Brave, because it is so intense, so good.
I don't want to listen to something that's sad.
No, it's maybe 80%. It's. I'm not saying it's necessarily sad, but it's just so intense, and like the scale of what you realise what they're going through is unbelievable. I think maybe people in the US are more connected with that, but living in the UK, we don't really have fires like that. So I never meet anyone that does that kind of job. So it's amazing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, here is quite a large tangent.
Okay.
But of course, one of the main reasons of starting the podcast was looking at the success of Joe Rogan's podcast, right? I'm just going to put it out there. It is quite amazing to see how much traction he's gotten. But one of the things that he's very interested in is UFC and mixed martial arts, right?
Yeah. Now,
I too, from a young age, have watched the UFC and mixed martial arts, and one of the fighters that has just recently fought and won his belt back, he's champion of the world heavyweight, Stipe Miocic, and he's actually also a firefighter, and he beats people up on the UFC stage, but is also a firefighter for, I think, Cleveland.
Yeah.
And he had to deal with a lot of these forest fires as well. So it's pretty badass from this guy, winning his title back, but
Yeah,
also
that's cool.
doing all the brave
Cool
stuff that firefighters have to do.
Yeah, I think I reckon firefighter in the UK, let alone the US, is up there top 5 coolest
Oh,
jobs. If
I had
not number one.
oh mate, I have so much respect for these firefighters. It's a joke. I had to do a health and safety course because I wanted to work on boats
Sure.
a few years ago, and one of the things was like a fire safety type situation, and the course that I did it was quite an extensive course where they actually had containers that they set alight and they had all the firefighting gear.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so you go in and they've already set the fire. They've already contained the fire into that container, and it was multiple containers, right?
Yeah.
And you're crawling because, well,
It's
you're
so hot.
crawling, and then they say stand up,
Oh.
and let's see how long you can stand up for effectively, but don't be stupid, right?
Right.
And I stood up, and the smoke, not fire, but the smoke was so hot. It was really like off-putting, and I felt, it was just hard.
Are you wearing the gear like
I'm
Master
wearing
stuff?
the full gear. I've
Okay,
got a photo of it. I'll
Okay.
send the photo on the Instagram
Yeah,
page
I do.
later.
So cool.
And you've got the full gear, you've got the oxygen tank and everything, and you stand up, and it's sweltering. You cannot the only thing that you can feel is heat,
Yeah.
and maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds, I had to just crouch back down again.
So intense.
And to think that they have to do that, they can't see anything because of the smoke. Crap is lying around everywhere. Trying to save people is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So shout out to the firefighters.
Yeah. Mega
100%.
mega shout out. Yeah.
Mega shout out.
So I think on
I
that,
will watch that film. I
Yeah.
will watch that film.
dude. I think especially after our little bromance session about firefighters, you should.
Mate, and shout out to Stipe Miocic. Yeah. I'm so happy for someone who's on a big stage to be also just a normal person.
Yeah, that's so true.
And actually a hardcore person too. It's so amazing.
Brilliant. So on to the good and bad.
Yeah. So here at I Know Nothing, we like sharing some news that is positive but also negative about the environment. And we like to have the balance because otherwise it can get pretty depressing. And we think that a major reason of why people don't act is due to the fact that, a lot of it is quite sad. Now, I think for this particular episode, we'll probably just skip the bad news of this week and just say that the Amazon fires is the bad news.
Yeah.
But George, do you want to say what the good news is for this week?
Yeah, this one's really cool, I think. So it stems from 40 years of federal protection. And what's happened is the Hawaiian coral reefs are showing life of coming back and sort of being restored to its former brilliance. Some species are coming back to the reef, and it's really good news. It's awesome to hear, and I think it's a really important one to note because it just shows how much power government can have, or governments can have, in making a difference to the environment. And I think that really the leadership needs to come from government. For me, in my opinion, we all need to do our little bit, and you and I are trying to do our little bit, but the real leadership, the forging forwards and getting everyone on board needs to come from that central spot, and making sure that those lazy people that you just can't stop doing bad things don't have the choice of doing those bad things.
Yeah, I agree more and more now. In the previous podcast, I actually said that I was a liberal, and that was incorrect. Actually, I'm more libertarian than anything. That's the word that's the box that I want to put myself in, I guess.
Okay, nice.
And as someone who believes that, government doesn't really help anything, this is kind of changing my mind as we go along with doing a bit more research, etc. Because I believe that people are inherently good. However, I do think that government needs to act to protect species, otherwise it can go haywire.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Cool.
yeah, like you said, we don't need to do the bad. We've got the bad for the week. So straight onto the company in focus.
Shall I do this?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So the company in focus for this week, and every week we do a company, which we're not paid by the way. We're not sponsored at all. We just like showing off good, innovative ideas that help the planet. But the company in focus for this week is the Rainforest Action Network, RAN.org. Now, these guys aren't particularly innovative, but I think it would be wise, while the disaster is happening and the media hype right now, I think it would be a good time to plug the charity that is enabling us to act from home. Look, I, for one, am not going to fight the loggers with my quick hands. I'm not going to, protest or anything of that nature. But what I can do is I can donate some of my spare money, or, well, not spare, but I can donate some of my money to people who are doing that kind of stuff, or at least not fighting, but acting and to save and protect the Amazon rainforest. What they can actually allow you to do is protect an acre is one of their things. So
cool.
By doing a donation, they're effectively just cornering off that acre that you've effectively bought. Yeah, I think that's amazing, George. I particularly am going to donate shortly after this podcast. And I think it's worth just hashing out the reason why the Amazon is, having so much bad done to it. And I think the reason is taking the resources from the Amazon is way more valuable than just leaving it alone directly. Directly. I think you can get so much value from the Amazon, hence why that Brazilian president has said stuff like he said. And I feel that donating and helping the value of protecting the Amazon directly is going to help stop doing that, if that makes sense at all. Yeah. I'm mixing my words, but I'm trying.
I get the effect. Yeah, I think everyone's going to understand what you said, and I think you're completely right. It's an important charity, and it is different from the companies we normally focus on, because normally they're a bit more niche, a bit more innovative. But this one's just an important one to mention today. People doing a good thing, and actually they're the ones that are really doing the work to stop what's happening out there.
Yeah. I feel like I'm tired this podcast. I don't know. I feel like sorry.
No, I mean I hadn't noticed. You seem alright to me, mate.
I feel lethargic. That's the word.
It's probably just hot, isn't it? It's warm.
Yeah,
sweaty.
I guess so. I feel like I haven't done any jokes. That's what I really want to do.
Yeah, and you're our joke man. I'm not a funny guy.
Well, maybe it's you. Maybe you're putting me down.
Don't say that.
Maybe you're dragging me down to all this seriousness.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sometimes often too serious, I think. But I don't know. That's just me. So if you like it or hate it, then it's not really my problem.
Did you give me an ultimatum? Is that what you just did?
I wasn't really aimed at you. It's more just
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I can't help my serious nature.
Yeah.
So, talking of serious nature, it's challenge time, and I'm really excited about this one. So Marcus and I want the I Know Nothing podcast to have a permanent, tangible impact, and we're making small personal changes and trying to help you, our listeners, to do the same. But that's not quite enough, and so we wanted to do something that meant you could help us make a bigger difference. And so we're going to make a pledge. For every 5 likes on our Instagram or Twitter or YouTube videos, anything like that, we'll plant a tree. And on top of that, for every podcast review we get, good or bad, because we want feedback, not a pat on the back, we'll plant a tree. So even if you hate the podcast, you can help us by making a little change to the world, both in terms of a tree being planted and also making us maybe slightly less annoying. The I Know Nothing community, also named by Marcus as the Fool Family,
The full family.
will be
Family of fools.
sort of banding together to fight the loss of trees across the Atlantic. So yeah.
Look, I'm going to look into the camera right now and talk to you guys. This is exciting. However, it sounds pretty hacky.
Mm.
Yeah. We know that. You know that. It's worth noting that we don't really care about the likes or subscribers or any of that, nonsense. We don't get paid by doing this. This is just from our own backs because really we want to get more knowledgeable and hopefully help you. That's full stop. That's what we are trying to do. What I would say though is that we kind of have to play the game. The way that YouTube, Apple, Spotify, how they all work is they've got algorithms. And of course, these algorithms promote content that reaches more and more people. Now, they're not going to promote anything that doesn't have very many likes or anything of that nature. They want to promote virality because that allows more people to then go onto their sites. So sadly, we have to be kind of hacky and do these type of challenges. However, these type of challenges aren't just getting, money from you, or they're not, just promoting ourselves. They're actually trying to do a difference. We are personally going to plant trees and we'll record it. For every, like George says, for every 5 likes on the video podcast and for every review, we'll do that. And I'm really excited about some of the change that we can actually do directly from this podcast, George. I will tell you that I am free in October, and I'm probably going to come to Devon. So that should be a great time to really count up all the reviews, count up all the likes, and we'll then get planting of trees.
Amazing. Yeah, perfect. I think just so we've got it sort of set out here for anyone that is keen to get involved. We'll put up a post basically probably before this podcast goes out, maybe just as it goes out, just stating, this is the post that you need to like, this is the one. Or for example, on the YouTube video, it's just going to be that if you're watching it on YouTube, then you can like that. If you want to go and, like the Instagram, Twitter, YouTube video and leave a review, then that's almost a tree. Right there, that's 4. Well, actually, if you leave a review, that's a tree and a half that you've done right there. Literally from like a minute, and you'll have planted a tree and a half.
And fuck it, we'll round up 2. No 3.5s. There'll be 2 trees. Everyone gets a tree.
Woo!
You get a tree. You get a tree. You get a tree.
You'll have to let us know though that you've done that, because otherwise we're just going to count.
Everyone gets trees, Jaws. That's all that matters.
Okay, let's not worry about the semantics.
Oh, sick.
Okay, so before we just walk away, having not told anyone actually where on earth they can find us, then you can continue this conversation or find those posts at our Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, our social media pages, all at I Know Diddly. So just hit up that, or if you want to go on our website, iknownothingpodcast.com, you'll find it all there as well.
Yeah, we really appreciate all of that, all of the interaction that we get, the likes, the comments, all of that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, I've actually I enjoy every episode, but I feel like this one was I just feel really good about this episode. And Marcus, I disagree with what you said earlier. I think, especially like just a few things I've listened to today, you saying, I've been like, man, he's nailing it. Like, he's nailing it.
Oh, thanks, mate. Oh, man. That's made me really happy. I felt really low about this one.
Oh, I just felt the opposite.
Oh, thanks, man. I felt like I wasn't flowing or trying to convey my point of view that well.
No,
I'm honest.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just like becoming more like me, and then you're just not enjoying that.
We will see.
Yeah.
We will see what people say.
Sweet. Well, awesome.
All right, mate. Ciao.
Thank you all for listening.
Love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.